My beloved child, listen closely, because a conversation happened when you were nowhere near the room, and somehow, your name became the center of everything. Your soulmate secretly met with someone very close to them, someone whose opinion they have trusted for a long time, and what began as an ordinary conversation slowly turned into something neither of them expected. At first, your soulmate tried to speak casually. They mentioned you almost as if your name had simply crossed their mind. But the person sitting across from them immediately noticed something different. Your soulmate's expression changed. Their voice became softer. Their words became more careful. And then came the question that shifted the entire conversation: why does this person affect you differently from everyone else? For a moment, your soulmate had no answer. Not because they did not know, but because the real answer was much bigger than they were ready to admit. Don't skip, because what they finally said about you was not what the other person expected to hear. Your soulmate admitted that there is something about you they have been unable to dismiss, no matter how much time passes or how busy life becomes. They explained that certain memories of you return unexpectedly. A sentence you once said. A small detail about your personality. The way you handled something when nobody expected you to remain composed. These details stayed with them. But then the person close to your soulmate revealed something surprising: I already knew. Your soulmate froze for a second. How could this person possibly know something your soulmate had barely admitted to themselves? And that is when the conversation became far more important than either of them had planned. What happened next was the first revelation. The person close to your soulmate explained that your soulmate changes whenever someone mentions you. Not dramatically. Not obviously. It happens through tiny details most people would never notice. They listen more carefully. They stop pretending not to care. They remember things about you that should have been forgotten if you were truly just another person in their story. And then this person said something your soulmate was not prepared for: you have compared other people to them without realizing it. That sentence created a silence. Your soulmate wanted to disagree, but they began remembering moments when it had happened. Someone would say something, and your soulmate would remember how you would have responded differently. Someone would show kindness, and somehow your soulmate would remember a kindness you once showed. Someone would talk about connection, loyalty, understanding, or the future, and your name would silently appear somewhere in the background of their thoughts. Stay till the end, because this was only the surface of what they discussed. Your soulmate then asked the person sitting across from them a question they had apparently been carrying for longer than anyone realized: do you think they ever felt it too? And suddenly, the conversation was no longer about remembering you. It became about understanding you. The person close to them did not answer immediately. Instead, they reminded your soulmate of something they had overlooked: you may have revealed far more through your actions than through your words. Your patience. Your distance at certain moments. Your willingness to remain genuine without forcing anything. Your ability to care while still protecting your own dignity. These things had created an impression. Your soulmate had been searching for one giant sign when perhaps the truth had always been hidden inside dozens of smaller moments. But here is where the conversation took an unexpected turn. Your soulmate confessed something they had never properly explained before. There was a moment involving you when they almost said something important, but stopped themselves. They had replayed that moment many times afterward, wondering what might have happened if they had simply continued speaking. The person close to them asked, "Why did you stop?" Your soulmate gave several explanations at first. The timing was complicated. They were uncertain. They did not know what you were thinking. They worried that speaking too soon might change everything. But the person listening was not convinced. They asked again, more directly, what was the real reason? And this time your soulmate became quiet. The answer was surprisingly simple: what they felt mattered enough to make them careful. They were not silent because you meant nothing. They became silent because you meant more than they knew how to handle at that moment. Something huge is waiting for you in this conversation, because the person close to them then challenged the story your soulmate had been telling themselves. They said that waiting for perfect certainty could become another way of avoiding an honest moment. Your soulmate could not keep assuming what you thought without ever giving you the opportunity to reveal it yourself. And then came the sentence that stayed in your soulmate's mind after the meeting ended: maybe the missing answer isn't inside your head. Maybe the missing answer belongs to them. Think about that. For all this time, your soulmate may have been trying to solve a two-person story alone. They were analyzing your silence, your words, your timing, and your choices while forgetting that only you could explain what those things truly meant. Then another detail surfaced, and this was the detail that changed the entire emotional direction of the meeting. The person close to your soulmate asked them to describe you without talking about appearance, circumstances, or anything superficial. Your soulmate paused. Then they began speaking differently. They talked about the way you carry emotions without always announcing them. They talked about your ability to keep moving even after disappointment. They mentioned something about your presence that makes ordinary moments feel strangely memorable. They admitted that you seem to understand certain things without needing endless explanations. And then, almost without realizing what they were revealing, your soulmate said, "They make me think differently about my future." That was the moment the person across from them smiled, because now everything made sense. This was not merely nostalgia. Your soulmate was not only thinking about what had happened before. Somewhere inside them, they had begun wondering what could happen next. That distinction changed everything. Don't skip this moment, because the person close to them immediately asked the question your soulmate had been avoiding: if they appeared in front of you right now and gave you one completely honest minute, what would you say? Your soulmate could not hide behind uncertainty anymore. They imagined you standing there. No audience. No complicated circumstances. No need to impress anyone. Just you and them, with 1 minute where honesty mattered more than pride. And their answer surprised even them. They said they would tell you that they never forgot the impact you had on them. They would admit that some distance never erased the questions. They would tell you there were moments when they wanted to reach toward you but did not know whether the door was still open. Most importantly, they would ask what you truly felt, because they finally realized assumptions had been controlling a conversation that never actually happened. And now comes the part your soulmate carried away from that secret meeting. The person close to them did not tell your soulmate to rush. They did not tell them to create some dramatic moment or make promises they could not keep. Instead, they gave them something much more powerful: clarity. They told your soulmate that if you genuinely matter, then the next step should not be built on guessing. It should be built on sincerity. Your soulmate left that conversation seeing you differently, but more importantly, seeing themselves differently. They realized that the unanswered question surrounding you had survived because they kept circling around it instead of facing it. And there was one final exchange before they separated. Your soulmate asked, "What if I waited too long?" The person close to them answered with words your soulmate has not been able to forget, "Then don't waste today trying to rewrite yesterday. Find out what is true now." That sentence changed something. Suddenly, your soulmate stopped thinking only about missed moments and started thinking about the present. About whether you have changed. About whether they have changed. About what could happen if two people finally spoke without assumptions standing between them. And this is the once-in-a-lifetime revelation hidden inside that secret conversation. They were not discussing how to forget you. They were discussing whether it was finally time to understand you. Your soulmate walked into that meeting carrying questions about the past, but walked away thinking about a possibility they had been afraid to consider, the possibility that the most important chapter between you may not be the one that already happened. It may be the conversation that has not happened yet. Something changed after that meeting, and your soulmate noticed it before they even reached home. The conversation should have ended when they walked away from that person, yet somehow it became louder inside their mind. One sentence kept returning, "Find out what is true now." Your soulmate had spent so much time remembering what happened between you that they had forgotten to ask themselves what they wanted to happen next. But now that question was impossible to ignore. What if the connection they kept analyzing was never meant to remain an unanswered memory? What if the reason your name continued appearing in unexpected conversations was because something still needed to be understood? Stay a little longer, because there was another detail from that secret meeting your soulmate had not expected to hear. Before they left, the person close to them revealed that they had noticed your soulmate asking indirect questions about you for much longer than they realized. Questions disguised as casual curiosity. Questions about how people change after distance. Questions about whether someone can still care without showing it openly. Questions about whether timing can separate two people who once understood each other naturally. Your soulmate suddenly realized those questions had never been random. Every road inside those conversations had somehow been leading back to you. And that realization created a new question they could no longer avoid. If you truly meant so little, why had they spent so much time trying to understand what your silence meant? Hours later, your soulmate replayed another part of the conversation that had initially seemed insignificant. The person close to them had asked, "What is the one thing about them you never understood?" Your soulmate could have mentioned dozens of things, but one answer appeared immediately. They never understood why there were moments when you seemed emotionally close and other moments when you quietly stepped back. For a long time, they interpreted that distance in the simplest possible way. Maybe you had stopped caring. Maybe you had moved on internally. Maybe they had imagined the depth of the connection. But the person close to them offered another possibility. What if their distance wasn't an absence of feeling? What if they were waiting to see whether you would meet them halfway? Your soulmate went completely silent. Don't skip, because that possibility changed how they remembered several moments involving you. Suddenly, situations that once looked like rejection began looking more complicated. Perhaps you had not been closing a door. Perhaps you had simply stopped being the only person holding it open. Perhaps you wanted effort to feel mutual. Perhaps you wanted clarity instead of endless uncertainty. Your soulmate began seeing something they had missed before. You may have been protecting your peace rather than abandoning the connection. And if that was true, then your soulmate had misunderstood one of the biggest clues in the entire story. Then came a memory your soulmate had almost forgotten. There was a small moment between you, nothing dramatic enough for anyone else to remember, but somehow it returned with extraordinary clarity after that meeting. You had said something simple, something that revealed how much you valued honesty and consistency. At the time, your soulmate heard the words but did not understand their deeper meaning. Now they did. You were not asking for perfection. You were asking for something real enough that you would not constantly have to guess where you stood. And suddenly your soulmate understood why certain moments between you may have felt unfinished. There had been emotion, curiosity, and connection, but not enough clarity. Something huge was hidden inside that realization. Your soulmate began understanding that the mystery was not whether you had mattered to them. That question was already answered. The mystery was whether they had ever made you feel that you mattered. That distinction landed differently. They started reviewing their own actions instead of endlessly studying yours. Did they communicate enough? Did they expect you to understand feelings they never expressed? Did they assume there would always be another opportunity? Did they confuse silence with patience? The questions became uncomfortable, but also strangely freeing, because for the first time your soulmate was no longer waiting for the past to explain itself. They were beginning to understand their own role in why the story remained incomplete. But the most surprising part was still ahead. Later, your soulmate contacted the same person again. Not for another long meeting, not because they needed more advice, but because one question would not leave them alone. Do you think I should say something? The answer did not arrive immediately. When it finally came, it was not the simple yes your soulmate expected. The person told them, only if you are prepared to hear their truth too. That changed everything. Reaching toward you could not simply be about your soulmate finally saying everything they had kept inside. It also meant making room for your voice, your experience, your interpretation of what happened, and the person you have become since then. Your soulmate realized that genuine connection could not be built around a prepared speech. It required listening. It required courage without expectation. It required accepting that you might have questions of your own. Stay till the end, because this is where their thinking shifted from fantasy to something far more meaningful. Instead of imagining one perfect moment where everything magically became clear, your soulmate began imagining a simple conversation. One honest question. One sincere answer. No performance. No assumptions. And strangely, that possibility felt more powerful than every elaborate scenario they had imagined before. Because maybe the extraordinary moment was never supposed to look extraordinary from the outside. Maybe it would simply be two people finally saying what should have been said much earlier. And tonight, there is one thought your soulmate cannot easily push away. During that secret meeting, they went searching for an answer about you, but they received an answer about themselves instead. They learned that remembering someone is different from understanding why you remember them. They learned that missing clarity can keep even meaningful connections trapped inside endless assumptions. And most importantly, they realized that whatever comes next cannot be created by repeating the same silence that created the confusion. Your soulmate is now thinking about the question they would ask you if they had only one chance to begin again, not begin the entire relationship again, not erase the past, but begin one honest conversation again. And the question is unexpectedly simple: what did all of this mean to you? Because your answer is the one piece nobody else can provide. Not the person they secretly met. Not their friends. Not their memories. Only you. And that is why the conversation about you became far bigger than your soulmate expected. They entered it wondering whether they should finally stop thinking about you. Instead, they walked away realizing they had never truly learned your side of the story. Now the mystery has shifted. The biggest question is no longer why your soulmate secretly talked about you. The biggest question is what happens when talking about you is no